And the way this works is very, very simple. You own the conversation. My job is simply to pass the microphone around. And all it's about is just talking to this microphone, really. And it's that simple. So we've got a few. Well done, everyone that's come and sat around the table. Let's get some names. As Siobhan said, yeah, let's have a round of applause for those early people. It's just us two, isn't it? Come on, give them a proper round of applause. Okay, so as I said, my name's Mikey. Let's get a round of names. What's your name?
Yes, Oliver.
And?
Penelope.
Penelope.
Tina.
And?
Max.
And I'm just going to turn this up a little bit, yeah.
David.
Yeah, and?
Alice. Nadra.
And we've got Rick over here on the camera and Yola on our heckle system, which you will see coming into action. So we're kind of here. We've got people around the table. We've got conversation about to happen, but there's a very, very big question. What do people want to talk about? We've had a bit of an introduction and a bit of like, oh, we don't want to talk at you, we want you to talk. But what have people got anything to say? Have they got any responses or anything that is stirred up by these particular questions?
I've got one.
Max?
I'd like to ask the group, if London was a face, which face would it be?
Okay. Well, if London was a face...
If London was a character, if it had a mascot...
Yeah, I mean...
If it had someone to represent it...
Okay, are you thinking about a real person or could it be a fictitious character?
It can be anyone you want. It can be past, present or future. It can be current, it can be a celebrity, it can be a figurehead, anyone.
Okay. If London
I think
was...
it'd be interesting to find out.
Can it be a body as well as a face?
Yeah, so who represents London for you?
Okay. Who represents London for you? Could be anybody. Come on, get involved. Who represents London for you, sir? Is there anyone you've got in mind? Boris. Boris. Okay, well, come and get involved in this. Does Boris represent London? We've got a new face again. So, what's your name, quickly?
Ian.
And
Lucy.
Okay, so is Boris, you're kind of screwing your face up.
Definitely got an opinion.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think Boris?
So, no.
Why not?
I don't think a politician should represent this amazing city.
Why not?
Because the city is too complex, too vast. It's like, I think that's a question that doesn't have an answer, to be honest. Like,
so
is there a face to London? I think it would be a multiracial person with many limbs and many talents.
Okay, so what you're imagining is this kind of weird, like maybe a bit like that Michael Jackson video where it keeps on morphing. Do you know what I mean? You know what one? Does anyone know what that one was?
Black video.
The black and white. Yeah, maybe it's like that. That would be more. So we've got Boris. We've got the black and white video.
I don't think Boris is right because Boris can't be representative of such a huge city because he represents a very, very small portion of society. I don't think he's got enough. He hasn't got any edge about him, really.
Okay, I mean, what do you think about the black and white video idea?
I quite like it. I like the fact that there's probably not an answer to this question, but if I was going to answer this question, I quite like her. She was up there before, Kate Moss. I think he's a bit edgy, he's cool. Yeah. I like her as a London, sort of, as someone who might represent London, but she's not multiracial, she's not as different, and she doesn't cover the broad spectrum that London is, but I think she's better than Boris. She'd be my vote of person.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it, I think. I don't have much else to say.
I think maybe people that don't live in London see Boris as a representative, but maybe people in London think differently.
Okay, anything on this side? You look like you're about to say anything.
I said a unicorn.
A unicorn? Okay. Any particular unicorn or just a generic unicorn?
A multicoloured one.
Let's get some of these pictures up there. Is it Boris? Is it a unicorn? Is it the Michael Jackson black and white video? Let's throw some of these on the board. What was your one again, sorry?
Kate Moss.
Kate Moss, is it Kate Moss? Let's throw some pictures out there and see what...
I think the we were talking earlier, I think the relevant question isn't what is the face of London and what brand represents London.
Right. So
and she had the best answer I think I've heard. So I'm gonna let her.
Okay. All right. Well, the unicorn brand.
No, it wasn't a unicorn brand. No.
Okay. I mean, is there a brand that? I mean, maybe we could start our own unicorn brand. I don't know. Would that work? London. I mean, where do unicorns come from? Maybe the concept of a unicorn was actually originated in London. I don't know. It could have been.
Yeah, but if you're going to use mythological animals, maybe a chimera, because I don't think London has just one face.
Okay, a chimera. Can you say a little bit? What is that?
Because chimera is a monster that is like a chameleon, has multiple faces, like multiple bodies.
So it's this mythological character.
It's a mythological character, but it doesn't have just one face.
Okay.
And also, you should never let politicians represent the city.
Okay, so politicians a definite no-no, aren't they? Actually.
It isn't Boris.
Okay.
I'm prepared to concede it's not Boris.
That's a bit of a.
You have to start somewhere.
Okay, it's a good starting point. You know, one of the things on Speakeasy, we always, I think every input, and you have kicked it off definitely, because people have definitely decided it's not Boris, but is it the unicorn? Is it this chimera? This mythical beast? You're not Greek by any chance, are you?
No, I'm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm from Venezuela, but.
Okay, all right, but is that where they come from? These, or is it a Greek mythological?
No, it's Greek mythological, but because I used to work for a British.
Yeah.
I used to work for the British Consul from Venezuela.
Yeah.
So you will never see London as having just one face. It was just like this mythical city where all these cool things came.
I mean, of what we've got there on the boards, we've got a bunch of cocktails, Boris Johnson, a unicorn.
Yeah, but they show but they show the ugliest chimera. It's just that's as ugly as Boris. It's a nice.
Okay, that's not really the best view. Anyway, but of those, the view from Venezuela, which one would it actually be?
Yeah, that's like a mythical animal.
Okay, so you're definitely the one on the left. We're talking about what, or I mean, can London be represented by a single face, a single person, a mythological creature, the unicorn? I think maybe Boris riding a unicorn. Do you know what I mean? We can.
It's going to be beautiful and it's going to be gritty. It's going to be beautiful, horrible, gritty. It's going to have everything about it. I don't think you can have
so it's got to be beautiful but gritty.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, is that Kate Moss?
I like Kate Moss. Yeah,
is Kate Moss gritty? Do you think?
Yeah,
it's a bit gritty.
She is. Yes. Oh yeah.
No, because it's like Freud and Jung said, every single personality has got lots of different characters inside them. So, I mean, can you think of a worse nightmare to have a mix of Angela Merkel, Hollande, and various other politicians?
Isn't that what it's called, the European Union?
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, exactly. We've experienced the worst nightmare.
So
the thing is, this question of representation, we want a human being who's more human than less, don't we?
Okay, so someone more human, not less human.
Yeah, I mean, and a Greek god would be probably quite good.
But that's not that human, though, is it? A Greek god?
Well, yeah, we need to go back in time and recover those. Go back in time and recover those values. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we go more human? Do we go more godlike? I mean, what would more human be? Who's the most human person in London? And what does that mean? Or is it a humanity? Is it like a very, very flawed person?
I think it seems to me that the image of London might be a bit out of date. Maybe it can't be just one person, and maybe it's much more multicultural than it was maybe 50 years ago.
Okay.
So maybe the person is not a person, maybe it's hundreds of different people. Okay. But is that an ownable image for London? What kind of sums up London for everyone?
So maybe it's not a person, maybe it's something else. I mean, maybe it is. I mean, we've got this, sort of, I was going to call it a landscape, but I'm actually going to call it a blandscape of just buildings and buildings and buildings. Does that represent London? Maybe it does, but to me it's still the cocktails, I think. But anyways, I'm supposed to be neutral in the middle here.
No, I think it's easier if you maybe say what are the 15 things that represent London.
Okay.
And then we can start listing things easily.
Okay, what are the 15 things that represent London? All right, okay. So, good idea. Good idea. Okay, all right, what we're going to do, going back to the Freud thing, well, let's get a bit associative. There's probably about 15 of us around here. Everyone just give us one thing each that represents, it could be anything. It could be it could be jelly deals. It could be like the borough of Southwark, which we're in now. Anything. Just give us one thing. Don't think about it too much.
Are we looking for things that represent London in a good way, or could it be anything?
I think it could be anything.
What
are you thinking?
Are we trying to start homelessness or drugs or anything, any vice or anything like that happens in London, or are we after something that advertises London as an attractive brand?
What's your name again?
Sorry, Lucy.
Lucy, what Lucy's saying is like we're going to reconnect with Freud and Jung. We're just not going to think about it. Could be bad, could be whatever, could be very tenuously related to London. But let's just go around, do a quick round, say whatever first thing that comes into. I'm going to say London. You say a thing. London.
London's parks.
Parks.
Markets. Tea. I think London's like bacteria that kind of grows.
Bacteria.
And
okay. Yeah.
24-hour London.
The river.
Urban arts.
The tube.
Creativity.
London buses.
Business.
What?
Business.
Okay. Okay. I don't know. The bacteria to me is what's sort of coming out, because that could be a culture, isn't it? Really, bacteria.
Well, I think one of the brilliant things about London is the fact that it's not one person and you can't sum it up. It's the mixture of everything coming together, and then the fact that when you do mix all that stuff together, it kind of evolves and turns into lots more fantastic stuff, all kind of almost by itself. None of us has to...
So it's a bit like a kind of magic pot or magic soup, but every time you mix it, more stuff comes out.
Yeah, it's like a virus, and it sort of has a life of its own, and it spreads, and ideas spread within it, so...
Okay.
Fog. I mean, if you think of London fog, we all know the idea of London fog, but you don't often see a fog in London.
Right. So what are you trying to say?
Well, I'm the foggiest. That all of these things we're thinking of, you know, they have their moment,
right?
But they're not universal. They don't spread right the way through your experience.
I mean, to me, I'm sort of like going to your bacteria. I'm thinking yogurt, but maybe the soup thing and different, like stirring the soup. Different things will bubble up to the surface, like that bit of fog, maybe, or a little bit of unicorn if it's a unicorn soup.
I think the yogurt thing's a good one actually, because it's like the culture. I don't mean culture in a sort of art sense, but the culture is what makes the yogurt thicken and take shape. And eventually go yellow and watery again.
Okay.
And I think that there's a sort of cultural ingredient in London. A bacteria which infects all of us and the way we interact with each other.
Hang on, disagreement. Hang on.
I don't know. I think the conversation we're having now is what defines a city, any city. I mean, culture, bacteria, viruses. I mean, all this we can apply to any city. But if we're having, for me, I'm not from London. I'm from California. But for me, what really represents London is not anything that we've said.
Really?
So
we've totally missed the point.
I just think we were discussing what represents a city like New York, Tokyo, Paris, London. It's all a mass up. When you get so many people together in one spot, it's just a melting pot of chaos.
Yeah, but has New York actually got unicorns?
Maybe it does. Depends on what time of night it is and what.
All right, but there's a very good point. There's a very good point here that we're not just talking about generic city. Come and get involved, you two. Come on, pull up a booth. We're a bit stuck here because we've come up with all these things that represent London. But what's your name again?
Tina.
As Tina's pointed out, come and get involved. As Tina's pointed out, it could be just any city. So, any city could be a bacteria.
I think London's got far more brilliant scientists than New York, that's for sure. We've got Francis Crick Centre opening. We've always had loads of boffins. I mean, whether you meet them or not, but they exist. They're creeping around.
So boffins.
Scientists, the ones that cry sometimes as well, happen to be women.
A crying scientist.
Oh, you read the story, didn't you?
I didn't know. What story?
Oh, the story about the scientist who made
the one who made the sexist remark.
Yeah, that's it.
Did he cry after that?
No, he did. Yeah.
Right. He was saying other scientists were crying. That's right. Now I know what you're talking about.
He probably did cry, but that's one of the unique selling proposition of London.
Okay, more scientists. Have we got more scientists than New York? We got a new face to the table. What's your name?
Mike.
Mike, welcome. I'm Mikey. Should we do a quick round of names? I don't think we've got time. It's not that important, and that's the point, because we're at a crucial juncture, because we need to work out what is different about London than, say, for example, New York. What are the other big cities? There's
Hong Kong.
Paris, yeah. I mean, Hong Kong maybe.
Singapore.
So, what makes London different? What makes London? Any of them could be a soup. Could be a unicorn soup with.
Yeah, maybe it's that it's big enough that it's able to be lots of things to lots of people at different moments, or different things to the same person at different moments.
All right. When you have you ever been to any other of these big cities?
What, the cities you're mentioning?
Well, like you mentioned, what, Hong Kong, New York,
Tokyo, Los Angeles.
Yeah. Have you ever been to any of these places?
Yeah. Yes.
Are they the same as London?
No, they're not the same, but they're different in their own range of ways. New York has a very wide range of places too.
I mean, I think the point that Tina's making, and it's a good point, is that they all morph and they're all multi-dimensional, but there is still something different about London. Hang on.
London's like lots of villages in a city. I mean, you could arguably say that parts of New York are like that too, but
it's got like Greenwich Village, for example.
Well, yeah, because it's called Village.
Yeah,
that's where I was going. That was my reference. But there is. I mean, it's full of absolutely little tribes of communities that
exist. Has it got a village mentality, would you say?
In some places, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, you can go to one borough to the next and you could be in a completely different city.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You agree?
Yeah, I do. I think you cycle across the city and you go through so many different places that look entirely different. They feel different.
Okay, so that
different attractions there.
That villaginess maybe is what maybe is different to London.
Thinking about the idea when you think about what a New Yorker is like and what a Londoner. When I think about a Londoner, it doesn't come like a specific character. Like if you think about a Parisian, you have like the stereotypical "lulala" with a beret, etc. And when we try to give like an image of London when I was working in Caracas, I mean, it's the same city where you have the Queen, Mr. Bean, and Banksy.
Yeah. Okay.
And they all came from the same place.
Right. Okay.
And when you think of New York, you think of the cool artists or the cool socialites, but they're not as mixed or as different or radical extreme like the Queen, Mr. Bean, Banksy, or these other kind of characters.
Can we have a look at that slide that you made, Rick? I think that might be a crucial moment to bring this up. We made an image of this.
Fantastic, though, the Queen, Mr. Bean, and Banksy, because for me, not being from here,
the Idris
to me, England, what London has is history that many other cities don't have, and you can walk down London Bridge or Tower Bridge, and you're really experiencing an old history.
And
then in 5 minutes, you can be in East London, where Banksy did some of his first pieces, and the humor in London is just.
Okay, so we've got humour, we've got mystery, we've got history.
Competitiveness. I think there's something about being competitive.
Okay, well we've got this at this juncture. We've got this slide that we made earlier of who represents London, and we've got some various Londoners on a kind of wrestling tag team sort of thing. I don't know if that helps.
To see the Queen like that is so messed up.
Okay, well, we never said. We said tonight was going to be interesting. We never mentioned it was going to be traumatic as well. But there you go. Now you know. Sometimes you have to have that.
I don't think Grayson Perry is the archetypal Londoner because he actually lives in a new house in Essex.
Right.
But he's got the he's got that graciousness about him. He's very open and friendly. He'll talk to anybody really within reason. And and to me, he's got that nice generosity, London spirit. But
okay. So you think in a way, even though it's interesting that he's not from London, but he represents London. That's in. Hang on. He is from London. But he doesn't live in London.
He just created this post-modern, this great, wonderful house in Essex.
Right.
So he's now an Essex boy, basically.
Right. Okay.
But hey, it's a small difference these days.
Okay.
I think you miss it there. London is not friendly. It isn't. I mean, I'm from the north of England, and my family, whenever they come and visit me, they are amazed at how unfriendly Londoners are compared to the rest of the country. So compared to the UK, London is not a friendly country.
Okay, let's just have a show of hands here. Is London a friendly place? Raise your hand if you think it's friendly. Okay. Who thinks it's unfriendly? Okay, interesting. So it depends where you come from.
I come from the second most violent city in the world, so this is very friendly.
Compared to Caracas.
So safe, so friendly, so
But
lovely.
is safe the same as friendly? Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't think safe is the same as friendly at all.
Okay.
I think London is very. I think maybe it's just British politeness, but I think people are very afraid of interacting because out of respect, not out of disrespect, out of respect because they don't want to bother somebody else.
Okay, so it's people who are scared to actually be friendly. Maybe it's a fear. We've got a weird fear of friendliness. Maybe that could be the next chapter heading, fear of friendliness.
There's lots of compartments in London, you know, like the sort of unfriendliness. You stick with your tribe, you stick with the people you know in your area, and like you don't cross out of that. So when you do, there's like this inherent, I don't know how to behave, I don't know who these people are, and that can be just from going from North to South London, or even from bloody Islington to Dalston. It exists. It's like I will stick with what I know in London, and so in many respects London can be quite insular. Although it has this massive creativity and diversity, there is an insular undercurrent that exists.
Okay, is that, I mean, do you agree with this conjecture that it is unfriendly? Because some people have said it's friendly.
I think there's elements of unfriendliness, but I don't think it necessarily comes from a place of. I think I agree with Tina.
It's about fear.
It's about fear, and it's about fear of interaction and fear of connection.
All right. Are we scared to?
Unfriendliness.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to come to Mike because he's not said much yet. You've not said much either yet. But I'm going to come to you in a second. Yeah.
The unfriendly thing about London, it's not a defining characteristic of London, it's the characteristic of large cities. You say it's different to anywhere in the UK. London is a different country compared to anywhere else in the UK. It's a completely different entity. It's just as unfriendly as New York, as
I mean, do
Sydney.
you have the same thing when your family come to London today?
I travel around the country quite a bit. Like a train journey between, say, Manchester and Leeds is a different experience to one across London. You'll have strangers talking to each other. You'll people will sit opposite and have a conversation. That does not happen, of course, on the tube. It's famous for it.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I would now. I'm 12 years on and off living in London, and I'm exactly the same now. I won't talk to people, and it is very strange.
Why is that? What was going on between Manchester and Leeds? What are they doing that Londoners are not doing?
So we think that's the thing. I think it is just the size of London. I don't think we can characterise London as being unfriendly. Because it's London. It's because it's over 7 million people.
Yeah, but I mean, there's not 7 million people on the tube train. There's the same number of people on the tube train as there are on that cross-country set or northern rail set.
Yeah. Is it not still the size what creates the fear and creates this concept of tribes? People do have their areas.
Do you think that's a reaction to the size?
I think that's exactly right. Yes, I think it is.
Okay.
Unfriendly is definitely not hostile.
Yeah.
I mean, unfriendliness. I mean, you can have a terrific time living in London. You don't need everyone to talk to each other, and it's very different to living in a hostile.
Would it be better to say shy rather than unfriendly?
I don't know. I like the respectful. I like the people just don't want to bother each other.
No, I'm just saying people are respectful towards each other.
It's more respectfulness.
Yeah, Claire was just saying about that Londoners, are they kind? And I think most Londoners, they are kind.
Kind?
Yeah, I think people are.
Okay, that's interesting. Kind. Do people agree with that? Are Londoners kind? Are Londoners kind? That's what we're talking about at the moment. Are Londoners kind? Are you kind as a person?
You know what I think? I think that actual real Londoners are very open. They're a bit cool, but they're very open. And actually, if they meet somebody who doesn't know the scene, they take them under their wing.
Yeah.
What they do is they do the top level thing. They tell them the more interesting places to go. They don't take them under the surface until they know that person's committed to the city. But most of the people in London aren't Londoners, so they're all chewing everyone away all the time.
They're chewing everyone away?
Shooing everyone away.
Oh, shooing. I thought you said shooing.
And that's what people think Londoners are, but most of the people in London aren't Londoners.
Well, you see, we've come to the point, we started off with unfriendly. People were saying Londoners are unfriendly. But then it became a kind of respectfulness, a reservedness. Are we stuck in our tribes? I guess that's why you started this event in the first place. What's your name again?
Nadra.
Lara?
No, Nadra.
Nadra. Nadra, speak loudly, sorry. No, what Nadra was saying is that they're not. They're just kind of like in their kind of tribes. They're everyone's for comfort. And Mike was also saying it's more about feeling safe in your own little world.
Question: how many people? Show of hands. How many people at this table are born and bred in London? That's a bloody good turnout. That's high odds. I'm telling you.
Does Gravesend count as
Sorry?
London? Gravesend?
Just a bit, yeah.
So does that mean is that territorial? Is that not, you're not a Londoner?
Yeah, I mean,
well, because
do you get?
What the great thing about London is because it does have.
Can I just ask? Are you from London?
No, well, I worked in London first 11 years ago and worked here since. But before that, I was actually quite anti-London. Couldn't imagine myself working and living in London. From the north of England.
I mean, do you sort of feel a little bit like, I'm
scared of London?
I'm not a proper Londoner, or do you think?
Well, no, that's why I asked the question. You know, actually, that's probably what's making London even better than it was before, is because of the mix of people that are making their lives from outside London as well as those that were inherently in London.
I would add to that. I mean, that question is interesting. I would not class myself as a Londoner. I'd class myself as someone who lives in London and has lived here for well over 10 years. But I wouldn't class myself as a Londoner.
Okay.
I think that if you've lived here for 10 years, you're a Londoner then.
Okay. Do we think he's a Londoner? Who says he's a Londoner? What's your name again?
David, yeah. Dave.
Do we think he's a Londoner?
I think he's got my permission as a proper Londoner, one who was born here.
Okay.
He's got my permission to be a Londoner if he wants to be, but he doesn't have to be. I think that's the great thing about London, that all you guys around there who have come to London after me, you can be Londoners too, and that's really great. And I think that's one of the things that makes
the thing about London is that anyone can be a Londoner. Do you want to be a Londoner?
Not necessarily. I love living in London, and I love saying I live in London. Whether could I don't know, because I wasn't born in London. It's something English about me. I couldn't say I am a Londoner. I think there's a very different. You said proper Londoner.
We were just about to make you an official Londoner. You were just about to be.
That would also be a slight betrayal on my home. I mean, if you went and lived over in New York for 10 years, would you want to call yourself a New Yorker? You probably don't. You probably wouldn't. You probably want to remain a Londoner at heart.
I think you are a Londoner when you feel like a Londoner. And you're going to be a Londoner, you're going to join in and help the city make a Londoner.
Okay, well, let's find somebody that is not actually born and bred Cockney Sparrow in London, but actually thinks of themselves as a Londoner. Anyone around this table think of themselves as a Londoner?
That's a great sandbag.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, being in the middle of the table and simply the microphone porter, I'm not at liberty to say, but I would say that I do feel like a Londoner now, because Gravesend's really boring and small-minded.
I think it's both the things. I think you've got to do your time, and I think 10 years is just the tipping point. I think normally 15 to 20 years, people really identify, and they've got to want to feel that way too. So I think it's both of those things. But I would add that my esteemed friend here, my colleague or peer or Claire, there's this idea that you're being very typically London, in the sense that we are very outward and very open and very accepting. We want people in, but funny enough, some of the people coming in don't always feel that way. They can be very closed. And also what we're seeing, I was very interested in that comment by Grace and Perry, that the wealth that's coming into London kills culture. So people buy into the culture because it's so vibrant and edgy and interesting, then they over gentrify it and destroy it, and then when they're finished with that toy, they go back to somewhere else that's cool. So London's becoming like a bit of a portfolio collection.
What you mean is, you mean
Londoners are being pushed to the margins, and with it goes their edgy culture. So you've got to be careful of that, the way people identify, how long they're here, what they're really investing, not just money, but themselves.
All right, there's a lot in that, and the whole beautiful thing about Speakeasy is it's up to you where you want to take all that chit chat from a real Londoner. What's your name?
Carl.
I knew that. Carl, where do we want to go there? Do we want to talk about, is London, this edginess? Do you want to talk about is the edginess being pushed to the edge, as Carl says?
We're being sanitised now. London is being sanitised by we know who.
Yeah.
We won't mention his name. So I feel like the edginess is going, especially if you're going to Soho.
I mean, is it an important part of?
Absolutely. And that was what made. I mean, people came here for that. You come to Soho.
Okay.
For the
so the edginess is moving to the edge. That's what people are saying, that we're losing the edge. Edginess. There's an edge thing going on here.
I do think we're losing the edge. It's just that a lot of artists who lived in Hackney Wick just couldn't afford to stay in their studios and their places, so they moved to Walthamstow instead. I totally agree with her. I just worry about Dubai on Sea,
Thames.
but on Thames further down, because there are going to be so many non-doms who scarcely ever. They've got a place in London, but they're hardly ever here.
Is London turning into Dubai on Thames? Is the edginess being pushed to the edge? These are some of the questions on the table. Yeah.
I feel from an outsider's perspective, looking into London, I feel that London, there's like East London, the trendy areas, and this whole hipster phase and everything. It happens so quickly that now I don't feel like there is this organic creativity anymore. Like I feel like all the areas have gentrified so quickly that art, like real art, real creativity, real kind of when trends start, when revolutions start, it's like everything now is like put in a clean little box of like, this is trendy London, this is perfect little cool hip London, and like I feel like where is the real creativity, where is the real edge? I don't know. Everywhere you go it seems so perfect now.
Is London losing its edginess? Is the edginess moving to the edge? Are we turning into Dubai on Thames? We've got a couple of new faces. You want to jump in at this point?
I was going to comment on that. Yeah, I kind of get that. This kind of the speed and the acceleration of how things are moving, and that's partly because London is it's so everyone wants to invest in it. It's very valuable, yes. Yeah. And so if you go to somewhere like the obvious example is somewhere like Berlin, everywhere feels the whole place seems a bit slower. Yeah. And so things have like Kreuzberg, even though it's no longer as hip as like Prenzlauer Berg or whatever, it's still kind of got the vibe to an extent that you had even in the 80s.
And why is that Berlin managed to preserve that?
Well, partly it's
creativity.
Because, even though there's been massive investment since the wall came down in Berlin, it still remains quite relatively economically relatively poor as a major city in comparison to say like London or New York. It's not the turnover of things is not so artists can afford to live there.
So basically we're making too much money in London. Is that the problem, that everyone's making too much money?
Surely I don't know, surely this edginess is just in the creativity is just being pushed a little bit further out but still within London.
Right.
Aren't we just going to the wrong places? If you don't like these gentrified areas, just don't go to them.
Someone said apparently if you go to Walthamstow, Rick, do you know how to get to Walthamstow? Yeah. But if you go to Walthamstow, you can find it.
Born in Walthamstow. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, what would you like to know about Walthamstow?
Well, I would like, how do we get there?
You go on the Victoria line.
Has it become more edgy? Has it become more creative? Has it? Do you still live in Walthamstow?
No, I don't live in Walthamstow, but my family still live there. And the thing I'd say about Walthamstow is it's become much more gentrified and much more pretty, but everybody there is more comfortable, I think, now, and it's the housing stock there 25 years ago was truly terrible, and it's not now. So I think it isn't edgy, but it was never fashionable.
But what about this creativity? Because I detect a concern around the table. Maybe it's just me, but the creativity is ebbing away from London. And some people have said, I've never been to Walthamstow, some people have said that it might be in Walthamstow, but is it ebbing away? It sounds like it's not in Walthamstow either.
It's moving in all big cities. These things move around. In New York, those edgy places have moved several times around the city in the last 30 years.
Okay, is it contained within the space?
The fact that we don't know where it is demonstrates that it's edgy.
Okay, so we don't know where it is because we're just not on the. We're not on the. He might know. He looks a bit creative. Yeah. Mike, where is it?
No, is it not interesting though? We've just come out of a recession, and usually that's when you breed music and art and creativity. What happened in London during a recession was everyone opened a small business. Everyone became good at actually trying to find different ways to make money, not through art or creativity. So you didn't get what you saw after Thatcherism, when you saw beautiful music and beautiful art. You just saw people try and play the game and play the London game. Everyone became an entrepreneur.
Right, so
it's just creativity, but by a different name.
Okay, so it's not maybe artistic creativity, but it's business creativity. People decide to go more of a business kind of way.
Yeah, it's survival creativity.
Right, okay. I mean, first of all, do we agree that London... Is it that we just don't know where the creativity is because we're just not on the button? Is it... Yeah.
I think there there is a mix of both, because obviously the banking system has taken over control of what is attractive about London.
Okay.
And this whole conversation made me think about something Fran Lebowitz said about the area of Times Square, how it went from being a edgy neighborhood to what it is now.
Right.
And she said that a city of rich people can be beautiful, can be very clean, can be fantastic, but you can never say it's fascinating.
Okay.
That is what she said about how she felt about what happened with Times Square.
Okay,
so I think it's a mix of what everybody's saying, but I think that the key is that the banking system and the financial sector has taken over London being attractive as an investment rather than just about creativity.
Is the banking any bankers in the room with the people? You're a banker.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Do you think that the banking system is somehow, I'm not quite sure exactly how, but somehow it makes London more of an investment vehicle rather than what were you saying? Rather than a fascinating.
A fascinating hub for creativity.
Yeah. Okay. Rather than a hub for creativity.
I don't know really. Banking is certainly not creative. I mean, it's not going to help in that cause. If you want a creative place, you don't go down to your bank, sort of thing. You certainly don't.
I mean, do you think banks could be more creative? Maybe that's the answer.
I don't think it's about banks' responsibility. I don't think anyone wants banks to jump onto the creative bandwagon. I think it'd be a little bit of that's not what they do. It'll be a little bit false of them. I think banks just need to be banks and creators need to be creators. I don't.
I mean, how do you respond to this idea that there's a kind of a blandization of the city because of a kind of culture of banking? Do you think that? Do you agree with that thinking?
I think banking is a bland business, but I mean it's a big money business, and that's why London wanted to attract it, and it has done. Yeah. And that was part of also London as a city, its aim. I mean the government now wants to keep. Of course, the one thing they want to keep hold of is all the finance business because it's a big payer. But I mean, that's just one of the things of a big city that you've got to pay. It's not creative. If you want, I don't know what else to say apart from banking. It pays a lot of taxes. It pays a lot of money. Yeah. It's actually quite good. It brings a lot of business, but it isn't creative.
Well, what about all the money that it provides? Surely that generates some kind of creativity.
The walkie-talkie, for example.
Sorry?
The shape of the walkie-talkie building that is just melting everything around.
You think that's quite creative?
No, because part of the reasoning behind its shape is because the higher you are, the more valuable the square meter is. So what the architects is just having the building swell
mushroom
on top.
Shaped,
but then you have this concave shape that just keeps pointing the sun rays.
I don't know, what do other people think? The walkie-talkie building, can we get a picture of it? Is that still, maybe clear some of those bubbles as well, because we've got too many thoughts. Is the walkie-talkie building, is it creative? Or is it just a symbol of trying to maximise the bang for your buck?
But in the city, space has always been maximised in that way. If you look at the medieval city, the buildings expanded over the street as well.
Do you think they were having similar conversations in medieval times about the banking and there's that 3-story building, it's really high, towering above our 2-story buildings?
Exactly, it's big enough. You can drive for hours through South London, you don't encounter anything that's even remotely to do with the financial centre.
Okay, so you think there's plenty of space for everyone and everything? Come and take a seat. Is there a seat? Oh yeah, there is. There's a seat over here. Come and take a seat.
I think the walkie-talkie building is the wrong shape for London. That's my personal opinion.
Right.
It's the one that goes like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Hopefully we're going to get
all the other buildings either are flat or they go to a point.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that it sort of blossoms out at the top. I think personally, as a visual, it looks wrong.
Can I comment on it? Because I sort of like it because. Not because it is actually innately beautiful, but it's the absurdity of it. Right. It's like this big bulbous thing. It kind of just goes it's just basically sticks 2 fingers up.
So you think it's a kind of fuck you building?
Well, in a certain way, and in a way, it's more interesting than the cheese grater, which was built allegedly to give a view of St Paul's, but actually it's one of Roger's worst pieces. Yeah. It's it's pretty ugly, and it doesn't really serve its purpose. Whereas this just is like this bulbous thing that's just kind of a big snout over all of us. I think it's quite funny.
Okay.
I know I shouldn't think it's quite funny, but I do. I think it's funny.
Okay, the walkie-talkie building. Is it like is it quite humorous? Is it a big thick?
It's the worst building Raphael Vignoli has ever designed. Honestly, it looks like, to me, I work in architecture.
Yeah.
It's like a python on steroids. And if you go down on the river on a clipper boat and you look up, you're sitting on the left-hand side and you look up, and it suddenly comes into view. I don't think Vignoli ever travelled down the river on a boat to actually see what it would look like from that perspective. It's so ungainly and overscaled.
Yeah. I mean, does that maybe represent London in that it's
That's the point. I think sometimes there's too much promotion on the big tall buildings. What about what's going on underneath them?
Right.
Can we see some of the courtyards, some of the community stuff? And then sometimes they get no focus, whereas the tall ones get every focus. I'm sure some great architecture is going on, but the big guys get it.
So it might be like a garden or a courtyard.
Something that's new and that's been given, that's been community. The fact that we're all going to be wanting to live in community soon because we're all getting older and we all want to live longer, but we all want to be together and not left. I think there's lacking in some of that area of focus, rather than just thinking that's a big building, that's ugly, that's that.
So maybe it's a bit kind of obvious in a way to just single out the walkie-talkie building because it's so much of a big fuck off. Whereas you've got something. There's a walkie-talkie building, by the way, behind you. In case you don't know what it looks like or you don't know what we're talking about, but it would be very unusual because it so much sticks out. Anyway, but what about the courtyards, the gardens? Can you give us an example of one? Maybe
I can't give an example, and that's the point. But I'm sure it's going on because I'm sure that empathy towards where we're going, and we want to live in communities because all our families aren't around us anymore. We're going to be friends and living in communes in the future. Is that going on? Can we talk about that? Because we all want it to happen.
Well, the great thing about Speakeasy, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's kind of up to you. And at the moment, I guess, what's your name?
Lisa.
Lisa is talking about, is it, oh, well, look, we've got the garden bridge. Would that be an example?
No, I think that's a little bit of...
it's a bit too grandiose.
Yeah,
still. Okay, is it a kind of like tourist concentration device? But, you know, there are little small courtyards, the unknown, the unseen London, those little things. Okay, well, anyway, let's just get... I'm just going to put out another call. This is Speakeasy. Come and take a seat. We've got some lovely people around the table. We're talking about London so far. We've talked about... Don't all leave. Okay. Have you got a final thought, Claire? You've said a lot.
I've said enough, I think.
What do you think is the most interesting thing you've heard from someone else?
I don't actually know. I need to think about what you've all said. I think there's been a lot of interesting stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I'd like to have access to some of the thoughts afterwards too, because I think there's been so much going on that I haven't always heard as much as I.
Okay. Well, we can in fact do that because of the miracles and wonders of technology. We can in fact just have a little run through of what's been said so far, and you can see it all on the screen. And if you speak nicely to one of the Creative Union team, they may well send you that. Because we like to share information. Anyway, that's going to come up in a second. My name is Mikey, this is Speakeasy. Let's get some names around the table. I know my one, but I'm going to start off. What's your name?
My name's Paul.
And?
Sophie.
Ben.
Laurel. Lisa.
Carl.
And Oliver.
Lucy.
Jason.
Jason, welcome. We've got a few spare seats. If you come and sit down, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But it makes me look more busy. Oh, someone's quick. You've got to be quick though. And what's your name?
Lisa Mack.
And we've got Tina over there. So that's all very easy. Where do we want to take this conversation? Do we want to talk about
whiskey?
Whiskey?
Yes, please.
Oh, I haven't got any whiskey. This isn't a bar. This is a bar of chat. But maybe we can get you a whiskey. Can we have a whiskey at the Speakeasy table, please? Well, there we go. How about that? That doesn't happen normally when I do these kind of gigs. Do we want to talk... where do we want to take this conversation? We want to talk about this kind of, as Lisa's mentioned, this kind of like hidden London, this kind of these little courtyards, beautiful little garden places which probably exist, but we've never heard of them.
Comment on this, which is kind of interesting, and I have to just say, you know, I do work at City Hall, do press there, so I know about this. So the Mayor's office have done a thing where they've invested money into 100 public spaces, as it were. So like pocket parks. It's something that's happening in lots of cities like San Francisco, I think New York and so on. And basically, it's where money is put in. So it might only be like a few meters, but there's some nice flowers, a bit of planting, and the community is kind of invested and involved there. And that's actually, I think that's quite a good thing. I think it's very constructive. It's a positivist approach, and it's quite good that the city is trying to sort of facilitate that sort of thing.
So it's kind of a pocket park. It is looking at the small little things, the little details of London.
In London there's a lot of different multicultural areas, and the point is that the multicultural people have a big families but live in very small places. Well, what I love to see, and I saw in Berlin probably 25 years ago, so what's happening in London is that they go out and have the barbecues, you know, in Duke's Meadows and Chiswick, and everyone's loving it and loving the parks and loving the space and living their lives. And that's what I love about London, that people can see their families through the areas and communities or the space that we're providing. And that's the future, because we've all got probably smaller places, and therefore we need somewhere to meet and to keep our families thriving, and I love that.
Little spaces. I'm just going to...
Isn't London the greenest city in the world for how many people that live here? For me, I'm like, this has been always London to me.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, but maybe there's no harm to make it a little better, and I think we have to say well done to Ben and his team for making that happen.
I mean, I know that this gentleman, Peter, might have something interesting to say about this, but I think there's a role of architecture in those kind of new public spaces. So I know that we're based over not far from the GLA, and there's the fountains there that are outside. And I don't think anybody planned for the fact that in this very glass, very sort of corporate environment, that the local community with children in the nappies would be coming down during the sunshine to play there, because they don't have that kind of facilities in their park. So yes, it's a green space, but they don't have those water features and things. And in summer, it's a beautiful place. And now that's becoming a case study for how architecture can lend itself to community. Even though it's quite corporate, people like it because it's offering something that otherwise wouldn't be there.
Okay, so in a way, what I'm going to take from that is not actually what you said, but that kind of serendipity, which I think is implied in what you said, the serendipity of like architecture and the juxtaposition of this community with that community, the little green pocket in between.
It's informing policy that's now being designed in. That's why Granary Square has a fountain at the front. That's why these things are now being considered.
What's Granary Square?
It's a King's Cross development outside central St Martin's.
Okay, so that's the art school over there. They've got some fountains, important to have fountains. Over on this side of the table.
I think what I really loved, I heard the other day, is about the social fabric of cities and the ageing population and loneliness in older people, and the way that architecture and gardens are bringing them together. And I think that's something we really need to work with. There's a big community spirit thing going on that we need to focus on for the ageing population.
Okay, so we're not, I mean, no one's really mentioned that before, but what about the ageing population? What about ways of actually...
It's massive, because the whole thing of people on their own in the houses at the moment, they've got no one to talk to. And as I say, that we haven't got our families around us anymore, so where do we meet people? We meet people, okay, if you've got lucky enough to have a dog, you meet people through having a dog. But otherwise, you're sitting in the park and you can have a chat. And that, I think, is the future, because it is an ageing population that we need to consider.
Yeah. So if you haven't got a dog, who here's got a dog, by the way? Has anyone got a dog? There's not many dog owners, so apart from you, we don't have ways of meeting people, so maybe that needs to be designed into the...
We should all have dogs.
Yeah?
It's really... And the city should provide dogs, Ben. Ben, what's happening with the...
Should the city provide dogs to...
Yeah. They hire a dog, like the Boris bike.
Like a Boris bike, a Boris dog.
So you can hire dogs. They could be there in the...
Could you? Yeah. What about that as an Ben? We've got an idea. This is expressly delivered to the... What's your name again?
The Boris dog.
Well, yeah, but what's your name?
Peter.
Peter's suggesting that we should have with Boris bikes, a Boris dog.
Well, you have got Borrow My Puppy now, which is a big thing.
Yeah.
Again, and it's all about
Can you get that on
everyone.
an Oyster card?
Let me think about that.
All right,
we should suggest that to them.
Okay, I mean, what about that, a Boris dog or some kind of like, some kind of way to get people to meet each other, and maybe it doesn't have to be a dog, or maybe it could be a robot dog.
Your point is, Lisa's point is it's about sharing, isn't it? It's about sharing open space, sharing green space, even sharing dogs. It's kind of it's part of what makes community, what makes society, makes a sort of social city as well as a spatial city.
Would you share your dog?
Absolutely, they borrow my doggy, yeah, because if you can't walk it, why not? And a lot of people do it. But it's not about the dog, it's about the space to be able to take your dog. It's about it's about people meeting people, and I think that's what we all don't want to be lonely and left, and I think it's really important about the future of London, because we want to keep it on. Yeah.
Loneliness
it's not just about
prevention.
youth, it's about continuing it on and having generations of people within London.
Okay, whoever's here at the speakeasy table, it's a good time because we are getting loaded up with drinks, which is once again something that's never happened before. But if anyone wants a drink, please do. I don't mind, as well as passing the microphone, passing a few drinks. I've just got to remember which one's my beer. Is this my beer? I think it is. But if anyone wants a drink, please do say. Maybe we can have a quick round of names and also order for a drink as well. I'm not going to ask, unless you name, but you've got all the drinks in front of you, so you don't need to
I have,
help yourself.
but I was only cleaning it and it went off. But I'm an out-of-towner, so when I come into London and I hear this kind of stuff, I probably take a lot for granted. But it's quite interesting to hear people talk about open spaces and sharing dogs and Boris dogs and things like that.
It's more like community spaces, really, in a way.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I probably have a tighter sense of community living where I live, but then I come into London and I can see.
Can I ask where that is?
Back in the Shires.
Yeah, which Shire?
Windsor.
Windsor. That is Berkshire.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Berkshire, because you were talking about loneliness, is there an issue about loneliness? You think that's?
I would probably say exactly the same thing. You know, I mean, it's just more open space, but the same kind of loneliness. You know?
Yeah.
There's lots of dogs there.
I mean, I kind of like where this conversation is going. How do we deal with this question of loneliness, getting people together? We talked about it's not unfriendliness of London, but we talked about this difficulty of people actually interacting with each other. The share my dog thing is one way of doing it. Open spaces.
I think a lot of it's connected to just the fact that people have a sense. We're all commodified in a sense. We're having to rush to kind of to make, to produce, to make money, to pay the bills and all that sort of stuff. That, and as a cyclist, is exacerbated by, if people talk about loneliness, actually just walk along without looking down at your phone and look around. If I'm walking around, I'm like, wow, the world is out there, there's people, look in your eyes, why I never saw that at the top of the building? You know, actually, we can do that, think about it as a kind of group social thing, we need it to be constructed, but actually, we could do a bit of that ourselves. Do you know what I mean? As a cyclist, I'm always looking around because you have to. As a walker, if I'm a pedestrian,
do you cycle into a lot of cars and stuff like that?
No, because I'm always kicking them.
Yeah.
No, but do you know what I mean? It's like.
Yeah, look up, make eye contact, look at people.
Be in the world.
No, be in the world. Be in the world of London. Don't be on your mobile phone.
It's about saying hello to everyone, smiling to everyone, and just having a chat. And if there's an older person in there, just saying hi. And I know this is about environment and about the world and about cities, but you know, it's important that we see people. It's important that in the road I lived in West London, there's a lady who's like 85, 88, and I see her, and she's walking. She's lost a dog, and she's walking down the road, and I saw her because I know her through the dogs, but she's got a scar on her right. She's fallen over that morning without me knowing her through that. I had to go find someone because she was lost. She didn't know where she was.
Right.
And that community, being with the dog or seeing people or talking to us, just saying hello, I could help her. And I think that's what London has to do with all the cities. It's not just about chasing the money.
We need to break down the barriers.
It's about, we've got the money, but how about the feelings?
Okay, so we've got the money. Now let's think about the feeling. What kind of feelings? You look like I felt that you were going to say something.
Well, I don't know. I think it's two different things I've experienced in London. One, I have done experiments where I have said hello to people, smiled to people on the tube, made chat with people. Like being American, I just talk to anybody. And the amount of weird conversations I've had, the amount of people being like, do you want something? Are you okay? Like,
what people think you're insane?
They think I'm mental. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Because I'm all about just about the social experiment. So really going into that.
So it's similar to what Ben suggested.
People, even though they don't seem aware, they're on their phone. People are very aware. Like if a woman comes on the tube that's pregnant, everyone will get up. Or if someone falls ill, there's about 10 people that don't even know each other will come together.
So it's not about a lack of awareness. It's more about this barrier. That's the sense I get.
It's the respect barrier that I hear. In America, we don't really care. We'll scream, we'll shout, we'll make conversation with anyone. But here we have there's this respect thing where they don't want to interrupt you.
Okay, so I'm just going to we've got a few new people at the table. I'm just going to very, very quickly recap. I might need to speak a bit faster because I don't want to waste people's time who are already at the table. I know what the conversation is about. So anyway, basically what we're talking about is London and the small spaces, the kind of social spaces. Do you need a dog to be able to talk to people in London? And what about loneliness? What about the old people? What about breaking down those barriers? And how do you do it? Tina tried to do it because she's American, and people thought she was insane. So we need a way, we need a vehicle to do it. And that's what we're talking about at the moment. We need a vehicle. How do we actually break down the barriers, stop people looking on their mobile phones? And actually make...
Can I say something? There's a lot of talk about green spaces, and green lungs of the city understand all of that as we move towards a more urban environment. But what's reassuring about London, you look at the South Bank and the skateboarders underneath there, they are using in a concrete environment, and there's lots of old, young, other people looking at them all day, every day, and they're using a minimal space to really enjoy themselves, and that's very reassuring in terms of the future with the young people.
Okay, so you think that in a way it's not green, it's not necessarily pretty, but it's a social environment.
Just because it's not green, it doesn't mean to say it's not good.
Okay.
But let's take into account that they tried to force them out to develop that space, and it took a huge public outcry to keep them there.
Okay. Well, okay. Yes, it did. Yes. Oh, you were going to say something. You haven't said anything yet.
That's what makes it even better is that people fought to keep that space. It was going to be a cafe, and it stayed as that. So it's something we could be proud of as well because it wasn't sold off.
I mean, what do you think about this conjecture that there's not enough kind of interaction there? It's very easy to be stuck in this kind of like bubble of loneliness. Do you sort of?
Dog.
You've got a dog.
I share.
So, okay.
And also.
So apart from those who have dogs, of course. We've got a couple.
You know what I think is really interesting from a kind of an outsider's kind of perspective is that a lot of people want to really connect with each other and they want to find spaces to do that. But at the same time, when the spaces aren't available, they're trying to make it their own. So there's a sense of community which underpins everything.
Right.
Everything we're talking about today. So even when it's not there, they're trying to make it.
Okay, so sometimes it's not necessarily like the campaign to keep that skateboarding place open. It's not necessarily about stuff you own. It's about making the space, literally forcing a space of creativity, and maybe.
Isn't that what Shoreditch is about? And kind of like elements that people want to come in and then create some element of interest and different parts of town that then become gentrified. I mean, surely it's about they create enough buzz that people want to.
So it's in a way it's about forcing your way into that space and making the space, making it creative, making it social. You look like you wanted to say something.
I've got a dog.
Yeah. Okay. So we're starting to get the dog owner. What sort of dog have you got?
I've got a mix. I've got a Shih Tzu Westie.
Yeah, okay.
She gives love.
Yeah.
She gives a lot of love. I'm not lonely. Yeah.
Okay.
I have got children as well, but the dog came first, obviously.
All right. See, that reminds me of a little story. When I was actually going on holiday in Japan, I went to this zoo, but it was a very, very... it was a bit of a rundown zoo. All there was a tiny little dog in a cage. It was a Shih Tzu. Sorry. Anyway, I shouldn't really do that. That's not part of my job. But what the hell. Anyway, so where are we going to move on to? People who've got dogs. Those who've got dogs don't have the problems of loneliness and isolation. All of their problems are solved just by having a dog. Peter suggested a kind of Barclays bike style dog docking sort of rent-a-dog idea.
Yeah, you can have like a zip dog. That'd be good.
Yeah, zip dog.
Zip dog.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic.
The zip dog idea seems very, very popular. The borrow my doggy. But I mean, where do we want to go with this? What do we want to talk about? Do we want to talk about the problems of social isolation? Do we want to talk about the creativity of making a space like the skateboarding space? Do we want to talk about who is it down to actually, you know, a few people around the table seem to have this dream of a London that's more interactive, where people talk to each other, where old ladies get cared for.
There's the pressure is about making all these kind of connections and digitally putting skateboarders with skateboarders. But ultimately, what you're talking about, Lisa, and what I believe too, is that you do have to root yourself in neighbourhoods. People have to be able to be supporting each other, not because they all like skateboarding, just because they happen to live next door to each other.
Right.
And it's the 85-year-old woman next door with a 13-year-old kid who's having a bluey down the road and can't get on with his parents. It's mixing all of that sort of stuff up that makes a kind of cohesive community. And I think that happens a lot in the community that I live in. That schools actually create a lot of that cohesion. But because I live in a household with no children, I kind of have to make other ways of kind of meeting my community. And I think it can be quite hard in London. It's not super hard in our little neighbourhood.
Where is that?
It's in North London near Finsbury Park, and we have quite a community of people who kind of get on well together. But I think there are lots of parts of London, and I think the way that London is being developed is a bit anti-neighbourhood.
Right, okay, so we need to be a bit more pro-neighbourhood. I mean, many eons ago when we first started this talkie-okie, is it Nadra was saying London is just like a kind of superimposition of so many different villages. So maybe that's part of it, I don't know.
That's the good thing about it.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, London is almost like its own country. I mean, I'm not from London, I'm from Manchester, and it's a big difference. And the lady that sat there, American lady, about talking to people, Mancunians, Northerners talk to people a lot more and respond a lot more. Southerners, it's a little bit different. And it's just the way we are. We're all very different. But the point is the fact that we are villages, we do, but we want to evoke more villages. I mean, East London wasn't, it's quite hardcore, but it's becoming village-like because people are setting up their houses and children and kids because they have to go to an area that they can afford. So we can do it.
So there's a kind of
village. Try and
effect.
link together rather than going, it's east, it's west, it's north. You know, we just want to try and link up and try and be more convivial, more Trumpton-like.
Okay,
you know?
so there's a kind of village. I'm going to use the term, which is totally made up, a villagification of London. And actually, you're saying East London has become more villagified. But then, what about villagifying the villages and having that sense of village? A kind of inter-village thing between the different villages. I'm sort of reading from you. Sorry?
That's what Morris...
Whoa, oh, whoops. Oh, whoops. Too many drinks on the table, I do apologise. Someone, come and get this lady. You definitely sat in the wrong seat there, so I do apologise for that. We've got a new free seat though. It's a dog-eat-dog world. It's interesting talking about the dog-eat-dog, but there's also the dog. I mean, for a start, I've never seen actually a dog eat another dog. It doesn't very often happen. Where do we want to go with this conversation? I'm going to move my drink over here. Have you got something to say, or do you just want to sit on that seat and
I'm observing.
Okay, hang on in there, pick up the pieces. You got something to say?
It was about the dog-eat-dog quickly, but I had an Alsatian that was killed by a Chihuahua. It choked on it, so it's not a good joke. But
okay. If you've known how to do the doggy Heimlich manoeuvre, then you're
Actually, I think that's one of the things. I mean, just out of the sort of whole social thing, I live in Shoreditch. I am not a typical Shoreditch. I have no beard. You'll know.
Right, okay. Did you get mugged?
Wow, exactly. And I think that's actually going to be myself and a colleague at work. Actually, we're having a bet to see how many sort of clinics come up for getting rid of the suntan sort of marks that are going to be inevitable when the fashion goes. But
are you going to do like a Bear Vember instead of a Movember?
I think so. Yeah, we're going to sort of exactly. Bear Vember, I like that. But I think that's the great thing about somewhere like Shoreditch. There's a lot of people are arguing the fact it's kind of getting gentrified. The bankers are taking over Shoreditch House, all this, so on. it's a great creative hub. I like living there because it feels very community spirited. But the other thing as well is, 3 doors down, there's the social housing. We're very privileged. We live in a nice year-old sort of glossy apartment block. I'm sure most of my neighbours are bankers. I speak more to the people that are walking around outside on Brick Lane that are in social housing because they're more friendly than the people that have professional careers that live over my corridor.
I mean, earlier on, that people were saying that areas like Shoreditch have lost their edge. They've lost their creativity. They've lost their edginess. Is that true, do you think? What's that?
I was just going to say, do you think the designers have been outpriced and the people with money have come in and they've just been pushed out? So is it just going to go further east, further? Obviously they have to go somewhere and then that will become the new cool place to be.
Well, Walthamstow, I do apologise. Walthamstow was identified as the location where all that kind of creative riffraff, the kind of like, the sort of like, the flotsam and jetsam, creative flotsam and jetsams being washed away to Walthamstow. Is it true?
I think that happens in a city, doesn't it? I mean, it used to be Soho as the creative centre, and then that changed and moved to Shoreditch, or moved to this area, and you look at Soho now, and it's massive, expensive apartment blocks.
So it's just a part. Is it just part of the kind of like organic sort of
the ebb and flow of areas changing over time, changing identities?
Okay, so that's just part of the city. It's not something we need to worry about, because earlier on it was a completely different. I don't think anyone that's here now was there then, but those people were worried about this. They were saying that London's losing its creativity, it's losing its edge, and they were sceptical about the Walthamstow kind of phenomenon. Is it really Walthamstow? But people around the table now seem to just think it's part of the natural ebb and flow, organic. I'll come to
I would agree that there is an ebb and flow, but there is also the potential risk that if too much gets squeezed to the edges, then whatever it is that made the city sexy, as it were, because basically we don't want just loads of glistening, empty, Malaysian, Qatari-owned.
They called it Dubai on Thames earlier on.
But one thing which slight change of tack, and it sort of goes back to what someone else was saying, was we may not know what's going on, but maybe there is some stuff going on. And I had a conversation with Carl here the other day. Jonathan Jones is an art critic in the Guardian, and he was bitching about, as he does about lots of things, but he was bitching about the commodification of art and saying that all the galleries, the big galleries, are just doing big, massive exhibitions, blockbusters, blah blah blah. Why is it that's all they concentrate on? Why aren't they doing stuff which is more sort of interesting, blah blah? And actually, why isn't he, as a critic, going out and trying to find the stuff and reporting on it? Isn't that his job, rather than just going to the openings and having the nice wine and stuff? Do you know what I mean?
So in the art way, be the change you want to see, be the art you want to see.
We all have to be a bit agents of change ourselves. To say, and actually, sometimes I'm a big fan of. I've always loved music, pop music, and now I'm starting to not know what's going on. Well, actually, I kind of wish I did, but actually, it's probably a good thing that people 30 years younger than me are doing stuff that I don't know about. That's really good, because that means something's happening.
Okay, so maybe we need to ask some of the younger people around the table what's going on. You're the one who said it, not me. You said 30 years ago. I'm paraphrasing you, Ben.
Any 10-year-olds here?
Are there anyone say 5 years younger than Ben at the age of 21 around the table? Okay, over to you, 21-year-old.
No. I'm going to just quickly comment on that, but I want to go back to the original thing that you were talking about. I think you're right, Ben. I don't disagree with you, but I think it's also he needs to do both. He also needs to draw attention to it, because people need to think about it. You were talking about creativity and London losing sort of its creative edge. It's losing its edge, but it certainly isn't losing its creativity. There are some sectors that are letting it down.
So it's more mainstream creativity.
The UK creative industries are second only to its financial industries in the money that it pulls in under what has been defined as those creative industries. 80 billion a year, 29 of which is created by London. London is a very creative city. Right. There are sectors letting it down and pushing it out, and architecture is one of the stories being told, which isn't telling the story of creativity anymore.
Okay, so it's not necessarily about creativity, it's about the story of creativity, the story of London.
I think sometimes the press just concentrate on the East just too much. And when you're from the West,
right,
which is a little bit affluent, oh, it's all right, but we're like, oh, please bring something back. Why don't, there's something there, there are people there, I'm sure there are. We may not be able to, but we just need to sort of, sometimes the press can become the villains of it all. We all know that they are, but we still need to think that there's creativity everywhere. The Western little creative person does not want to go to the East to be creative. I'm sure there's something in the West that's creative that they have to find too.
All right. Okay, so it's more about the story than actually what's happening. There's so many things, we've already identified, there's so many things going on in London. We can't possibly know all the things going on.
I think culturally though is sort of, in Shoreditch or East London, somebody graffitis a wall, it's like, wow, that's really cool. In West London they'd be hosed it down and the police would be out looking for the perpetrators, I think. But I think it's, I think one of the risks, I think it's great to have a change in London. I think it's nice to see the ebbs and flows. And I think actually, I think a lot of blame's on, people being priced out. Yes, that goes on to a degree, but I think we've got to be careful of ghettoising, if that's the right phrase. But I think that the creative communities, the art scene, Soho's moved east, all this kind of these themes. I think that's just the way the world is. I mean, it's constantly evolving. I think it's really exciting about London. You got rich, you got poor, you got people, all sorts of backgrounds. I think that's what makes London really good.
Okay.
The rich and the poor is a really good scenario. Saying coming from Manchester, the rich and the poor are very much more segregated. Well, the beautiful thing about London is that they're next to each other.
Right.
And I think that really works, because in Manchester it does become ghetto. It has become ghettoised, and it's really a problem, and it's still coming out of that. But what this project's talking about tonight, about the urban regeneration, Manchester has an urban splash, which has made it's come from what it was to what it is now, and seeing it just this week from where I grew up, it's just amazing. And I think if it can sort of embrace some of the, not embrace the London thing, but if we can sort of look at the other cities apart from London and start to talk about them all as a whole, as homogenous whole as art, and the way we're all going, is quite interesting as well, to be honest, because we're very different.
Right.
And London is quite its own country.
Okay.
It's not just a town; it's its own country almost. And it's very interesting that we have a lot of similarities. So.
Okay. Where do we want to go with this? What do we want to talk? Anything sparked on this side?
The families in the middle. Everyone's moving out of London, so I've got so many friends who. So you've got the rich, you've got the poor, and then there's everyone in between who are like, do you know, I can't afford to live in London anymore.
Right.
So they're all moving with us to Brighton.
Okay, so
which is slightly annoying as well.
Do you agree? Because there's been a lot of talk on the table. Earlier on, it was all about London losing its edge and the creativity going. Now people are saying, oh, it's just the natural ebb and flow, and it's around somewhere. I mean, do you agree with that, or do you think like those middle people that are neither rich nor poor are all just moving?
Always, I think you get to that level always, but I think that the rich and the poor has become even more. I think it's because the last 10 years that difference has just become bigger than ever.
You're moving to Brighton.
So, I did that 12 years ago. I was like before the,
Okay, you were the pioneer.
I was the pioneer. They all followed me.
Yeah.
But all my friends are like, we love London. We want to be here, but we might, but where we have to move out to be able to afford to live in London, we might as well move somewhere to like Brighton, Folkestone, Margate.
Are these places, Folkestone, Brighton, Margate, almost becoming part of London in a way, where those sort of not rich, not poor, but quite interesting people are going to, and then they're coming back to their meetings in London? I don't know.
We're benefiting from it, definitely. So, Brighton's a buzzing place. It's full of creative, clever people, and more than it was 12 years ago.
Okay, interesting.
Train to London.
So, I mean, is it in a way, they call it London by Sea, I know that, and they're starting to call London Dubai on Thames. You want to watch that one. But
I did not say that.
Yeah, note that down, note that.
Get in trouble with that. No, you can't.
But I mean,
the thing is that we're all moving out or looking to where we're going to live and afford our families. Is do we have to be in London? That's the question. Are we all going to have to come back to the hub to be creative, or are we going to be hubs outside digitally connecting? I know it sounds a bit naff, but it is the truth, because with transport getting more expensive and this and that, we're almost like going, well, actually, we're coming a little bit like Europe when we're starting to sort of, there's not just London, it's about other towns within the city, within the country.
Sort of like, I remember,
what is the future, you know?
I remember from my geography lessons, that was called the sphere of influence. And on the outside of that sphere, maybe it's easier to live and do interesting stuff.
The ability to do it through the ability to do it now.
Yeah,
The thing is, do we have to come back? How many times do we have to come back into London? Well, we have to come back into London. So that's London's thought process, is that if it's only the Dubai, the richer people in London, maybe the creators will not come back in. They'll just talk to each other through virtual
reality. They'll be on the real peripheries.
Who knows? But that's a thought.
Okay. Well, we've got it recorded, and we're going to play that back in 30 years' time, and maybe it will be true.
Sorry, everyone I know who now lives in London, they're all accountants of some sort or another, because they can afford the $1 million+ homes in nice places. So
is London becoming a city of accountants?
You've either got to be like a genius in the creative world, or you've got to be a banker, hedge fund manager.
Imagine what if you were a genius accountant. Imagine the kind of place you could afford. Okay, so London, city of accountants. These two haven't said anything. Yep.
Imagine living in a city of accountants. How interesting that would be.
They're actually quite fun.
All the accountants I know are massive hedonistes, I have to say, so it wouldn't be that bad. Well, you haven't said that much. London, city of accountants. What do people think on this side? You've not said much.
I live in Brighton. I've never lived in London, so
do you agree with this? I mean, there's this idea that's sort of developing on the table now that it's a periphery place. It's an hour to London. Well, so you can nip into London, and that it's a more space for creativity. Do you sort of agree with that?
I definitely think, from sort of having lived in Brighton and worked around that area, there's some evidence for a lot of people coming down from London to come and live in places like Brighton, like Lewis, looking for somewhere to start their family, looking for sort of some rural idyll, but still being able to access everything in London. And there's a definite creative buzz there as well in both those towns.
Do you think there's more of a creative buzz there than there is, say, Shoreditch?
It's hard to say. I've been to Shoreditch once, but I know that there are some areas in London, I think possibly places like Mayfair, where the houses are so expensive and they're apparently being bought up by foreign buyers who don't live there and only maybe go there a couple of weeks out of the year. So these places are completely dead when you go to visit them. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's been talked about a lot actually. All of that, the more expensive areas of London have become kind of uninhabited. It's been called on this table Dubai on Thames, and that's the sort of sense that it's just investment property. No one actually lives there. Hang on a sec, because I just want to bring these two in, because part of my job is to bring in the quiet people like these two that don't necessarily, they might have something more considered to say because they've been sitting and listening.
We're very shy people.
Yeah, I can tell. Have you got anything to say on this side? What do you think about all of this? Is London, in a way, it's almost like a sort of like, it's like a tree trunk in a way. The centre is dead, but it's the outside that's actually kind of growing and interesting.
It's like an onion. Okay, so the more you peel back the onion, the deeper it gets, and that's like London. Okay. So the more you peel it back, the more it grows.
Okay.
And at the centre is like where it is.
Okay, but I mean, is it better to be on the centre or on the outside of that onion?
Well, it depends where you want to be.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to go to. I'll come to you in a minute. What's your name?
Jake.
Well done. And but you were saying something on this side.
Was I?
What did you want to say? Because no, you wanted to say something.
You said something about lots of flats, empty flats.
Yeah, I mean that's what. What's your name again?
Samantha.
That's what Samantha was talking about.
I come to London. I live in Surrey, but I come to London lots of times. I work in Wembley. I can't see that many empty flats. I think most overseas investors and UK investors who buy property buy it for a return, and apart from the Candy and Candy stuff in One Hyde Park, that type of ilk, most of the apartments in London are occupied.
Okay, so there's people living there. It's not an empty, dead centre.
I think they're contributing.
Okay.
I think in the area, I live in a lovely place in London and very lucky, but I feel very poor in it, and we're not poor.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite a mental thing to get over. So,
why is it that makes you feel like that?
Because the salaries we earn are high, and yet we feel the poor relation, and I think that's quite a
head fuck.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't going to swear.
Well, you were sort of pointing. It
is that,
yeah.
And you're trying your hardest to do it, and you're finding a house, but you have to find 150,000-200,000 pounds to make a deposit on a house.
Yeah.
Where do you get that? Unless you're a banker, you do not get, or you've inherited it. Lucky enough to have that. You do not get wads of money like that. So you may be earning a great salary, but you still feel poor that you can't get on the ladder. And I think that's the sad thing about London, because otherwise I think London's a fantastic place and I love it. But at the same time, where I'm living, if the school's good and the state school's good, all of a sudden the money comes to the state school because they want to save money and push out the people who can afford that school. So there's a lot of negative things about that, about money coming in, and I think that's what stops London from growing as communities, because the money comes in and takes over.
The negativity comes from people investing in London but not living in London, and that is what the rich do outside of London. They put their money in the protected piggy bank of London, but they don't live there.
What about these people that buy a particular property because it's close to a good school? I mean, they are still living in London.
It's great. If you've got money and you're outside London and you want to buy into that, that's fine. But if you're not living there, then you're not contributing to the society.
Okay. Is money ruining London? What do people think? Is money creating is it, what's your name again, sorry? Gareth is saying it's the people that don't live in London with the money, but I get from Lisa that it's also people with money that are buying all the nice places. Can money have a negative effect on London? Because it's kind of useful. Yep.
I think there's a bit of a misconception fueled by media at the moment and politics, that there is this awful kind of buy to leave mentality, which isn't as big as everyone's bigging it up to be, and it's just political kind of scoring, buy to leave. So this myth that there's so many empty places bought by overseas investors and just that. And I don't think that's true. I think certain areas have been ruined. I think Knightsbridge isn't what it used to be, but then Knightsbridge has always been the wealthy place, So you've got to have money to live there. So.
Okay, so you don't think necessarily money is that big a deal? I'm going to come to you because you've not said that much.
I think money is essential for creativity. You go back to the early, the portrait painters of the 17th century, 18th century. They required rich benefactors. Greek Roman artists required rich benefactors. So money is essential for creativity. But I see
so in a way, money can actually makes it more creative. And in a way, is that why we're all here? Are we here for the money, or the creativity, or both? You were going to say something?
Just that. Also, that money can also inject money into an area to make it nice. So it could be just a complete shithole at the moment, and then to make it into something that's nice. So it's talking about the green spaces earlier. That costs money.
So actually, maybe just with a few tweaks, it's about tweaking where that money goes, or how that money's shared out. Could actually have a massive impact. That's the sort of sense that I get.
And I think the thing is that if money doesn't come into the really popular areas and make those unaffordable, we wouldn't expand out into those areas which are dives. I mean, I grew up in the East End of London, in Leytonstone, Stratford.
Yeah.
Which earlier I was having a conversation with someone going, Stratford's amazing. When I grew up, Stratford was a complete and utter fucking shithole, and no one ever went there. So it does have a benefit. It has a benefit of people from other countries coming in and pushing people out.
So in a way, it's more about working out where those flows of money go. Are they going in the right direction? Could you somehow just tweak the flow to make those money go into the green spaces, into a little bit into that environment that everybody loves? But
that's met with a problem, though, isn't it? Because as far as you start putting money into green spaces, that's going to turn into a demand. Demand is going to mean that green space, green belt is going to be developed upon. There's so many brownfield sites in London that we know are looking at being redeveloped. There's a big one going on in Shoreditch at the moment, which is literally in front of our apartment block, and it's going to look like a bunch of skyscrapers.
Where's this?
Potentially. This is the old railway yards, which is a big development near Shoreditch High Street. But quickly, I actually moved from Cambridge to London after many years of commuting. So I moved in January, and actually we're saving money, weirdly.
Okay.
We were spending, between the two of us, myself and my partner, £12,000-14,000 a year commuting. And, we're actually sort of no worse off living in London. And
okay, so it's actually been a benefit.
Financially, it's much better, and we're living I'd say a better lifestyle.
Okay.
For less money.
I just say one of the downsides of living in London by sea, Brighton, is you have to leave early to go and get a train. So.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe it's time for some final thoughts anyway. So before you go, give us, and maybe I'll say this, it might be time to take a natural break anyway. So let's have a final thought from everyone. You first, as you've got to go and catch the train.
Oh, well, I love coming to visit London. I used to live in London for many years and think it's a fantastic city. So,
okay. What are you worried that London's going to lose its edge, or it's not a problem for you?
No, not at all. London always changes, it always has done, it always will do. It will always be a fantastic, vibrant, creative place.
Okay. Well, enjoy the train ride back to London. I hope there's not too many dodgy drunk people on that train, as it can be. Well, let's just. I think it may be time to get. Are you leaving as well? Give us a final thought.
I'm also going back to Brighton.
Okay.
But yeah, it's always lovely to come and visit London. Lovely to come here, and I've really enjoyed the experience as well.
Is anything that you've heard sort of kind of made you think, oh?
Yeah, that Dubai on Thames description I thought was fascinating. I'd never heard that before, and it's really interesting to listen to people who actually live in London talk about the media's perceptions of their city and their own reality of living there, and to find out what people actually think on the ground. So.
I think that's one of the things that definitely today that I've heard is there's so many different views of London, from the top of the skyscraper to lying in the park looking up at the bushes. Any final thoughts? Final thought?
Love London. I get excited coming up. I always have done. I always will do. I love bringing my daughter up. She's only 4, but first Selfridges experience, things like that. Shape a person for life. Love it.
Okay, so Selfridges. Maybe Selfridges is the face of London. Well, it's not something we talked about. Have you got a final thought? Are you still here? Okay. Well, are we going to carry this on? Are we going to? What's that? No idea. We can. All right. Well, let's get some final thoughts. We're going to get some final thoughts anyway. We might do a kind of acoustic encore a bit later on, but maybe we just get some final thoughts for this session. So, have you got a final thought?
I need a drink.
Okay. Well, you're plenty around. If you're not fussy, one of the things actually we were talking before we kicked off this session is, our view of London was actually the drinks and all the different drinks you can get in London. But anyway, maybe that's something we can talk about in the next session. Final thought?
I think a lot about the London property market is fueled by politics rather than reality at the moment.
Okay. It's by politics rather than reality.
Yeah, because I think certain parts of London have always been impossible to afford, and we focus on Dubai on Thames and Knightsbridge being dead, and the reality is it's always been dead. It's always been a playground for the wealthy, and I don't think it's changed that much.
Okay, so in a way it's the same story of Dick Whittington, but remade into a new blockbuster feature. Same story, same London.
I think my question is, how big can London be? And when does London become Britain? It expands and expands, and I love its creativity, and I absolutely adore it, but it might need to share some of its love.
Well, we've got all of these people from Brighton that sort of see themselves as part of London, so maybe London is that big now that it's the whole of the southeast. Okay, let's get some final thoughts. Gareth, you got a final thought? Have you got an initial thought?
An initial thought, the property market is overvalued. I think we're going to head for a crash. That's my.
So we're heading for doom.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Be ready. Gareth says the property market is about to crash. You heard it here. Okay, final thought?
I'm actually going to go contrary to all my other comments and say that the one thing that we really need to be careful of is demonising gentrification. Because I'm a proper Londoner and I was brought up in the 70s during all the sort of winter of discontent, it was a shithole. Yeah. And actually London's a much nicer place to be generally, it's just that it's getting that balance.
Okay. So the balance, I mean, one of the things we talked about earlier is like, there's so much money sloshing and flowing around. Surely that could be, those flows could be injected into things like parks and actually making the environment of London, the social environment of London.
The problem that we have is the great capitalist lie is now being understood better, that it isn't a trickle-down economy, it's a trickle-up if you allow it to be. So there's people like, the idea of privatising businesses so that private competition drives down costs and gets better value and improves services because they're competitive is a lie on things like rail. If you're going to Gatwick, you can't go to Heathrow, they're different train companies. But the irony is that 80% of British train companies is now owned by one Asian businessman. So the money is going up and out, it's not going into people that can invest in things like parks and services and stuff like that.
Okay, final thought?
I just think London's rocking at the moment. It's a melting pot of crazy culture. It's redefining business models, fluidity, youngsters, entrepreneurialism. I'm really proud of it. Yay.
Okay, I mean, yeah, all right. Okay, well, let's have a big round of applause while there's still people at the table. And thanks to Rick on camera and to Yola on the box of tricks. My final thought, my favourite comment really was that London is best represented as a kind of unicorn soup, which I thought was great. It was a combination of different things. Well, we started off this whole thing. How do you represent London? Somebody said a unicorn. Somebody else said this kind of melting pot. Someone said bacteria, and then we sort of came up with this idea of this kind of bubbling soup that shows different faces that are in the soup, including the unicorn. So unicorn soup. You can go with that. So there we go. If you've got something, there we go. That's an insight for you. Well, let's say thanks to Creative Union and.